Chapter 5 Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Luna? Serena was standing in the darkness. As far as the eye could see was black abyss, and the air felt stale and cold. "Where am I?" she whispered, then covered her mouth as her voice echoed loudly in the shadows. When finally the noise died down, she looked around. What was going on? How did she get to this awful place? She took a step forward, and her shoe clicked on an invisible floor. Serena rubbed her arms and shivered as she walked quietly through the nothingness. How creepy, she thought. She felt lost, a stranger in a strange land. Suddenly, Luna's face popped up in front of her. Serena jumped back, wincing. Luna had told her more than once that daydreaming was going to get her hopelessly lost someday. Yeah, well, Luna was too strict with her anyway. What was a girl without dreams? Bored and lifeless, that's what. Serena sniffed and thrust her chin in the air. Luna didn't understand what being a truly modern and dynamic female was all about. Just then, Serena could hear a loud growling from behind her. She whipped her head around and then choked back a scream. A huge female wolf creature was crouched in the darkness. She looked like a woman who'd grown fur and pointed ears. Her eyes were long and pointed. Serena began to shake. This time it was personal, she thought. Could Serena really fight her? That wolf lady looked hungry. The creature snarled and charged. Ah! Serena ran for her life, her shoes slapping the ground madly as the creature's roars rang in her ears. As fast as she ran, she still heard the wolf lady closing in behind her. No! Serena screamed, pumping her legs faster. Leave me alone! Help! Light suddenly flashed in front of her, and a white-gloved hand clutched her own. Jump, Serena! A familiar voice cried. Serena's heart nearly stopped. Could it be Tuxedo Mask? Serena held her breath and jumped as high as she could. Strong arms caught her, and she was pulled into an embrace. She leaned her cheek on Tuxedo Mask's chest as the two of them floated into the air, well out of the reach of the wolf lady. The creature roared in anger. Serena breathed heavily, looking up at Tuxedo Mask's face. You can fly?" she whispered unbelievably. "There's much you don't know about me," he replied, his voice gentle. One gloved finger gently touched her cheek. Serena blushed. Thank you for saving me," she stuttered. Tuxedo Mask brushed some hair from her flushed face. "I'll always be here for you," he whispered. Serena stared up at his eyes, blocked by his white mask. So close, she thought. I'm so close to him. I can feel how warm he is. So close, I could just take off that mask. Serena swallowed, then gently, carefully, reached her fingers up towards his goggles. Tuxedo Mask just smiled. Ah! Serena's eyes popped open. Ah! She shot up in bed, grabbing her ears. Hey, who's screaming? Get it away from me! Get away! Serena's eyes narrowed angrily. Sammy? Ugh! How dare you wake me up from such a perfect dream, she muttered, realizing that Tuxedo Mask had been a dream. Ugh, that's not fair! Get away! Sammy's voice shrieked from the other room. Get away! Get away! Serena! Gee, Sammy, I'm coming! Serena mumbled angrily as she pushed aside her covers and slipped her feet into her bunny slippers. She yawned as she opened her bedroom door and went down the hall to her little brother Sammy's room. Luna was on the end of his bed, violently awakened by Sammy's screams. Sammy was curled up against the headboard, his eyes wide with terror, a pillow hugged against his chest. His huge blue eyes flickered to Serena as soon as she stood in the doorway. Serena! He screamed. Save me! Get that thing off my bed! Serena blinked. Luna? You're screaming because of Luna, she rolled her eyes. Sammy, you are such a baby. Luna's a cat. She won't hurt you. You ruined my beautiful dream for that? She complained with another yawn. Luna looked up at Sammy with curious red-orange eyes. Sammy shrieked. It keeps looking at me, he cried, throwing his pillow at Luna. Luna dove out of the way, and the pillow whacked Serena in the face instead. Sammy! Serena roared, her eyes red. That hurt! A frightened Luna jumped into Serena's arms, and Sammy covered his head. Keep it away, Serena! Serena frowned. What was wrong with him anyway? Who'd be scared of little old Luna? Well, she thought, when Luna got in one of her I'm mad and I'm going to yell at you for a good half-hour moods, she could get pretty scary. Then Serena remembered. Sammy hated cats. Here, Sammy, Serena murmured wickedly as she held up Luna. Want a kiss? She waved Luna near Sammy's face. Sammy cringed and squeezed his eyes shut. No, Serena, stop it! Serves you right, Serena hissed, pushing Luna closer to him. You have to learn that you kids just can't throw things at animals. Just then, their mother's voices drifted from downstairs. Serena, Sammy, pancakes! Serena suddenly froze, her eyes wide. Food! She squealed. Better yet, pancakes! Ditching her taunting of the panic-stricken Sammy, Serena dashed from the room, leaving only a cloud of dust behind her. At the pancake table, Serena happily crammed pancakes into her mouth as Luna quietly ate cat food at her feet. Sammy, across the table, crossed his arms angrily. Mom, he whined as his mother placed a dish of pancakes before him. Tell Serena to get rid of that ugly little cat. I wouldn't talk about being ugly, Serena snapped back through a mouthful of pancakes. You don't have a right to... Don't talk with your mouth full, dear. Serena swallowed. Leave poor Luna alone, Sammy, she said with a glare. She's my pet, so you don't touch her. Dad, Sammy said, pleading to his father sitting beside him, can you make Serena get rid of it? Serena's father shrugged, turning the page of his newspaper. It's up to you kids, really, he said, as he picked up his coffee mug. Reach an agreement between the two of you, though. Whether the cat stays or goes, I don't want to hear any more arguments. Serena pushed back her chair and stood up. Well, she said as she bent down and picked up Luna, I have to go to school. My lovely and harmless cat will escort me. With one final glare at Sammy that practically said, You're going to lose this war, Serena picked up her lunch and walked outside the door. The sun was bright outside, and Serena stretched her arms above her head as she stepped into the sidewalk. Brushing her long ponytails over her shoulders, she sighed. Luna, Serena said, as soon as she and the black cat started walking, why on earth did you try to sleep at the foot of Sammy's bed last night? Do you have a death wish or something? Luna shrugged, at least as much as a shrug as a walking cat can. I've been very tired lately, searching for the Moon Princess all day while you're at school, despite many times I've asked for your help, Luna said, throwing a glare towards Serena. You seem not to be interested in helping my search, so I'm doing it all myself. Well, excuse me for dealing with nerve-wracking school by day and ghouls and ghosts by night. Forgive me for not finding time for your princess hunt in my wide-open schedule. Serena let out a breath angrily. It wasn't like she asked for this added responsibility. School was bad enough, but trying to find some princess hidden off in who knows where? Yeah, right. Fighting monsters as champion of justice was bad enough. Although Serena would gladly trade school in for helping Luna find the princess, her parents would have had a little trouble with that one, though. Besides, Serena added, if you're so tired, why didn't you just sleep at the foot of my bed? You kick, Serena. I'd call that a death wish. Serena scowled. With Sammy looking to give you the boot, I'd kiss up a bit more to your only ally. Considering I stood up for you today, you aren't acting very grateful. Luna's face fell. I guess. I just want Sammy to like me, she said quietly. What should I do? Serena flipped her backpack over her shoulder to carry it more comfortably. Well, considering he's got to agree for you to stay at our house, I'd suggest becoming his friend. She waved a hand, though I don't really know what would get him to like you. He's really scared to death of cats. Luna sighed, her eyes wandering over to the cat on the other side of the street. It was running to a little girl. The cat jumped on the girl and licked her face. The girl, squealing with pleasure, hugged the cat and giggled. Maybe, Luna whispered, maybe something like that would work? Man, Serena mumbled, completely off subject. I could really go for a croissant ham and egg sandwich right now. Those pancakes didn't fill me up. Luna rolled her eyes. Pancakes didn't fill you up. Serena, how did you get to be such a pig? Pig? Serena slapped a hand to her mouth. Does that mean I look fat? Oh, tell me I don't look fat. She quickly turned around, scanning her figure in a store window with panic eyes. Oh, Luna moaned. Not again. We just finished the diet chapter. Jedite stepped from the darkness, bowing on one knee. Darkness, hot and thick, swirled through the air in the stone kingdom. You called, my queen? Yes, Queen Beryl answered, her voice low. Her long fingernails trailed down from her floating crystal ball. Do you have your next plan ready, Jedite? I am tired of waiting. Jedite's lips curled with a smile. Yes, your majesty. My plan is ready to be put into play at your command. Then proceed. Jedite looked up, and cold blue eyes flashed. His smile was wicked. With pleasure, my queen. Chapter 6. Sinister Sense. Really? Molly blinked. Your brother's so scared of your cat he won't look at her? Serena dug into her lunch bag and pulled out a sandwich. Flipping over the top piece of bread, she grinned. Tuna. Serena, are you paying attention? Serena looked up. Huh? Oh, of course I am. She bit into her sandwich. So, what were you saying? Molly rolled her eyes and leaned back against a tree at the center of the school courtyard. The sun filtered through the leaves and speckled the grass with yellow light. I was just saying, it's so hard to believe Sammy is so scared of your cat. Why does he hate cats so much? Serena crammed a few Pringles in her mouth. I think it's because... Don't talk with your mouth full, Serena. Serena wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and finished chewing. Everyone was always so concerned with talking and eating at the same time. All she really wanted to do was eat. Sammy was bitten on the nose by a cat when he was a baby, Serena explained as she picked up her juice. Now he's scared of all cats. Hi, ladies, Melvin shouted as he suddenly appeared by Molly's side. Mind if I join in? Yeah! Serena screamed and threw her juice, splattering all over Melvin. She grabbed her chest and glared at him. Melvin, you big dork, don't scare me by popping up like that. Melvin looked down at his juice-stained shirt. Oh, man, he squeaked. Now my mom will use that special Tide with bleach stuff, and it always makes me itch. Melvin, gross. Don't you have anyone else to bother? Molly asked. Melvin frowned and tried to wipe the juice off of him with his handkerchief. Only a real dork would carry a handkerchief around, Serena thought. Besides, every time Melvin popped up, there was some type of trouble, not to mention the fact that no cute guys would ever come over if Melvin was with them. I heard you say your little brother was bitten by a cat as a child, and now he's scared of them, Melvin commented. Something like that happened to me, too. A cat bit you? Molly shrugged and stretched her arms out. Can't say I blame it. Melvin shook his head. Not cats. I'm just allergic to them. But I have a real fear of alligators. Serena and Molly exchanged glances. We all have a fear of alligators, Melvin. Serena wasn't impressed. So what happened? An alligator chomp on your face when you were a kid and that's why you're so ugly? Molly twisted the knife. Melvin frowned. Actually, it was an alligator skin purse and it didn't bite me. It just sort of bonked me on the head, but it had the same effect. The girls counted to 3 and dumped their lunches right on top of Melvin's head. Melvin, you're such a dweeb. Later that day, Serena and Luna stood outside of Crossroads Elementary School waiting for Sammy. Serena wasn't daydreaming as she usually did when she was standing around and the sun was out. Instead, she was holding her stomach and moaning. I'm dying of hunger, Serena's stomach rumbled. Luna, you wouldn't happen to have any food on you, do you? Luna sighed. What do I look like? Meals on pause? Serena shot her a look. Very funny. Serena, your mother packed you a huge lunch today. How could you possibly still be hungry? I didn't get to eat any of that huge lunch, FYI, Serena complained. I dumped it all on Melvin because he was being a dork. Luna did not show Serena any sympathy. Then it's your own fault. Don't come whining to me. You can at least feel sorry for starving your champion of justice, you cruel feline. Serena's face turned red. Considering I had to give up my normal life once you came to me, you owe me big for not bailing out on you. I could easily just refuse to fight. Serena? A voice of a boy came from behind her. Serena froze. She whipped her head up, only to see Sammy looking at her strangely. His hands gripped the straps of his blue backpack. Talking to yourself again? He said with a shake of his head. Geez, Serena, you're such a loser. Quiet, brat, Serena snapped. Mom said you were getting out late today, so I have to walk you home. What? Sammy made a face. I'm going shopping with Mika today. Not that I want to walk home with you I'm going home anyway. Man, what was Mom thinking when she sent you? I'm surprised you didn't get lost coming here. Serena's mouth dropped. She had come all this way for nothing? All that walking just to be rejected and insulted by her own brother. It would have been much easier just to have headed straight for the Crown Arcade. At least the Sailor V video game wouldn't reject her. Maybe she would even get a chance to talk to Andrew. Sammy hadn't noticed Luna was there. Before Serena could get back to yelling at her little brother, Luna suddenly jumped into his arms and began to lick his face and purr, just like she had seen another cat do that day. Ah! Sammy screamed as he frantically tried to pull Luna off. Serena, get this nasty thing off of me! Luna sniffed and jumped back down to the pavement. Sammy breathed heavily, covering his head with his arms. No, he shrieked. Get it away! Get it away! Serena couldn't stop laughing. Her annoying little brother screaming bloody murder because of Luna. It served him right. Serena suddenly wondered if keeping Luna around would keep him in line. Now that was an idea. Luna ran off as Serena watched her go. Aw, Sammy, Serena said as soon as she could control her laughing. You hurt Luna's feelings. Sammy had taken his backpack off and was shielding himself with it. He glared over the top zipper. You keep that thing away from me, he shouted. I want that creature out of the house, Serena. Get rid of it. Serena put her hands on her hips and narrowed her eyes. When pigs fly, she taunted. Fine, I'll be looking for you up in the sky, Sammy muttered angrily as he put on his backpack. He ran a shaking hand through his hair. I'm going with Mika, he said flatly. Tell Mom I'll be back by dinner. And when he walked away, Serena scowled. Little brat, she thought. Not only did he insult my cat and me, but he leaves me stranded 30 minutes from home. Serena froze. Home. Food. A half a second later, Serena had disappeared, leaving only a huge cloud of dust behind her. A small girl stood outside the arcade. Her hair was red-brown, and it fell past her shoulders, framing a small button nose. And as soon as she saw Sammy in the distance, she jumped up and waved. Hi, Sammy, she called cheerfully. Sammy brightened and ran the rest of the way. Mika, he panted as he reached her. Sorry I'm late. My stupid sister held me up. Mika laughed. Oh, it's okay. She took his hands, her eyes bright. There's the best new place that just opened, she said excitedly. It's a pet shop with the cutest new pets there. You gotta see. Sammy blinked. A pet shop? Yeah, Mika said, giggling and pulling him. Come on, let's go check it out. After a few minutes, Sammy began to sniff the air. Something smells nice, he commented. What is that? Mika giggled, pointing to a large store. The words Perfume Pets were printed over the door in shiny pink letters. This is the place, she tugged on his backpack. Come on, let's go in. Sammy opened the door, and a wave of perfume scent flew at him. He blinked, then breathed deeply, smiling. Wow, he murmured. It smells like strawberries. Mika led him in, over to a long row of cages. See, Sammy, she said, pointing to something white and small in the cage. This is the kind of pet this place has. They're called chineras. Sammy looked closely through the bars. The creature inside looked like a tiny fluffy rabbit with small ears and big blue eyes. It shuffled slightly as he sniffed again. That's the smell, Sammy said excitedly. It's coming from the chinera. The chineras give off perfume scents, Mika explained, and each one has a different scent. Sammy went from cage to cage, smelling each different chinera. This one's peppermint, and this one smells like violets, Sammy grinned as he put his face near another cage. What do you smell like, little guy? He asked with a smile. The chinera looked at him, and his big blue eyes caught his own. Sammy suddenly froze. The chinera's eyes narrowed and began to glow. Sammy's face fell as he gazed hypnotically at the chinera. Sammy, Mika said in a zombie-like tone as she came up behind him. She was holding a chinera, staring into its eyes. Her pupils had gone fuzzy, and a big dreamy smile was on her face. I'm getting this one, she said fuzzily. Sammy opened the cage and then picked up the chinera and stared into its big blue eyes. Sammy's pupils had also gone cloudy, and the same goofy grin was plastered on his lips. "This one," he chanted, his voice as hazy as Micah's. "It smells like spring." The clerk walked over to the two of them. She was a tall lady with red hair and bright green eyes. She grinned and put her hands on Sammy's shoulders. "So, you kids want these chineras?" she asked, her voice sweet. Sammy and Micah nodded, not taking their eyes off the creatures. "Then you can take them home, then." The woman waved a hand. "Pay for them whenever you can. There's no rush." Sammy and Micah nodded again, walking towards the door with their chineras held in front of them. "Yes," they chanted, voices oddly robotic. "We'll take them home." The woman smiled wickedly as soon as Sammy and Micah were gone. "Excellent," she purred. She turned around to the chineras and smiled. White fangs glinted in her mouth. "Good work, my pets," she whispered. "Jedite's plan is working perfectly." Chapter 7. Furby Imposters. Back at home, Serena sat on her bed with Luna. The talking black furball was very upset. "I don't get it," Luna said with a sad sigh. "I tried to get him to like me. Normal people like it when cats lick them." Serena shrugged. "Yeah, but Sammy's my little brother, so he doesn't qualify as normal." Lena covered her face with her paws. "I'm a failure," she moaned. "Now I'll never get to stay here." "You could stay in the alley behind our house," Serena suggested. Wait a minute, Serena thought. What was wrong with this picture? Here was Bossy commanding, pushing Luna, giving up without a fight. "Don't throw the towel in yet," Serena insisted. "I don't get you at all. You're always telling me to fight to the end. You should take your own advice." Luna looked up at her eyes hopeful. "You think I could really get him to like me?" she whispered. Serena nodded with confidence. "Sure. Convince him with your cuteness, your charm, your prowess," she explained, waving her arms out. "Convince him with your beauty. Intrigue him with your savvy. Turn on your kitten charm and melt him so he wouldn't dare try to get you out of the house." Serena put her arms and shrugged. Or if all else fails, do what I always do." She slapped her fist with her palm and grinned wickedly. "Convince him with a knuckle sandwich." Just then, Sammy walked in. He was still holding his chinera, eyes glued to the small, odd-looking creature. "Serena," he said, his voice sickeningly sugary. Before he could finish, Luna jumped from the bed and ran to him, meowing madly. She rubbed against his legs, batting her eyes at him and giving him the sweetest little kitty smile she could. Serena winced. "Geez, Luna, talk about pouring it on. This was more like drenching it on." Sammy momentarily moved his eyes from the chinera and glared darkly at Luna. He pulled her back to his legs and kicked her. "Meow!" Luna cried, jumping out of the way just in time. She hopped back on Serena's bed, and Serena shrieked in anger. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" She grabbed Sammy by the arm, her eyes blazing. "You never hit an animal. How dare you try to kick Luna? What has gotten—" "Get rid of that thing!" Sammy spat, breaking from Serena's hold. His eyes, normally an ocean blue, looked murky, fuzzy brown. "We don't need a worthless cat," he cried, holding up his chinera. "This will be our new pet. This is much better than that dumb feline." Serena grabbed the chinera out of Sammy's hand and looked over. She made a face. "This?" Serena shoved it back into his waiting hands. "It looks like a Furby, only uglier." Sammy's eyes flashed with anger. "Don't say that," he screamed, holding his chinera close. "This chinera is the most wonderful pet anyone could have, and no one's ever get bored with it." Serena snorted. "That's what they said about Furbies." "Serena, Sammy, snack time!" Mrs. Zucchini called from downstairs. Serena's eyes widened, and she started to drool. "Oh, it's Wednesday, which means lemon pie day." She grabbed Luna and flicked narrowed eyes at Sammy. "We'll talk about this later," she said sternly, then shot downstairs like a lightning bolt. Nothing could get in the way of Serena and her lemon pie. The next morning, Serena ran downstairs late as usual. "Ah! Where's my lunch?" Serena shoved a piece of toast in her mouth and ran around frantically. "Mom! Dad! Where's my lunch?" Serena's mother was washing the dishes. "By the door as always, dear," she called cheerfully. Oh, and before you go, could you run upstairs and make sure Sammy's awake? He's going to be late if he doesn't come down soon. Serena stopped dead in her tracks. Sammy? Late? Sammy was never late. I'll check on him, Mom, Serena called as she dashed upstairs. Luna was just awakening and walking through the hall with a yawn. Serena, she asked as Serena ran to Sammy's door. Are you ready to go? Hang on a second, Luna. Serena knocked on Sammy's door. Sammy, are you awake? No answer. Luna sat down and curled her tail around her body. He's not up yet. Serena shook her head, eyes wide with surprise. This is weird, she muttered. Sammy likes going to school. How could he sleep this late? A better question, Serena thought, is how could he actually like going to school? Serena turned the doorknob and pushed the door open. Sammy? She called quietly as she poked her head into his room. All the lights were off. The shades at the window had been pulled down and blocked the sunlight, turning the room frighteningly dark. Sammy was sitting on top of his bed, staring into the eyes of his chimera. Serena gasped. Sammy? She sputtered. What are you doing? You're going to be late for school. Sammy suddenly realized Serena was watching him. He grabbed the chimera and pushed back against his headboard. Get out of here, he shouted. I'm not going to school. I'm sick. Serena sucked in a breath. Sammy looked skeleton thin. His cheekbones stood out sharply in his face. His wide eyes, which looked brown the day before, now looked black. He almost looked malnourished. Sick? Serena bit her lip. Sammy, you better go see the... Get out! Sammy cut Serena off mid-sentence, throwing a pillow at her. Just get out and leave me alone! Serena swallowed hard and closed the door. Luna looked up at her with wide eyes. Why is Sammy yelling at you? The cat asked. Serena bit one of her fingernails. I don't know, Serena mumbled, her voice concerned, but I think something's wrong with Sammy. By running faster than the speed of light, well, what it felt like to Serena, Serena managed to get to school before the second bell rang. She fell into her seat, exhausted. Hey, Serena! Molly hopped up to sit on Serena's desk. She patted Serena's head, lying on the desktop. Good job! You made it without being late for once. Serena was panting so hard she could hardly talk. I think I'm going to die. Molly rolled her eyes. You can't run yourself to death at the age 14, Serena. Molly, Serena weakly took Molly's hand. Tell my family I love them. Just then, Miss Serena walked into the room. Molly went back to her desk. Good morning, class, Miss Serena called as she put down her bag. How is everyone today? No answer. Miss Serena looked around the room, surprised. Class? Why are you so quiet? Serena, surprised, looked around her at her classmates. She gasped. Nearly everyone had a Chanela. Kim Matthews had hers on her desk and stared into his eyes. Lisa Brownridge did the same with her Chanela. Even Rika Kelton. Even Tim House, it seemed everyone except Serena and Molly was staring at a Chanela. Well, except for Melvin. He was in the back staring at a nerdy computer book, just like he did every day. Molly? Serena leaned towards her best friend. What's with all the Chanelas? Molly shrugged. They're the big hit now, she whispered back. I don't get it personally. I think they're ugly. Serena looked around. It's like everyone's been brainwashed with them, she whispered. Don't you think that's weird? Molly yawned. Not really. Last year it was Tamagotchis, then it was Furbies, now it's Chanelas. Serena clasped her hands together. She wasn't buying it. Tamagotchis and Furbies were just toys that entertained people until they got annoyed. These Chanelas were in a totally different league. Everyone who had a Chanela didn't seem either entertained or annoyed, just hypnotized. Something was suspicious about the Chanela thing. Miss Haruna crossed her arms. All right, I want everyone to put those weird pets away, she barked. I've heard about them from the administration at Crossroads Elementary. They're too distracting to have in class. Nobody moved. Miss Haruna stomped over to Kim's desk and hovered over the girl. Kim, didn't you hear me say put it away? Kim didn't look up from staring at the Chanela. Miss Haruna's face grew red with anger. She reached for the Chanela. Kim suddenly jumped up and grabbed the creature away from Mrs. Haruna's hold. Don't touch it, Kim screamed, backing away. Get your hands off my Chanela! Serena's jaw dropped. Kim was always such a model student. She would never yell at a teacher like that. What? What? Miss Haruna's face reddened beyond tomato crimson. Young lady, you better turn that attitude around immediately. Kim ignored Miss Haruna and walked out to the door with her pet. All the other students picked up their own Chanelas and followed her out the classroom door. Wait! Miss Haruna cried, running after them. Where do you think you're going? You can't just leave class! As soon as Miss Haruna and all the other students disappeared, Serena looked over at Molly with wide eyes. Did you just see that? Serena drew a breath. Kim screamed at Miss Haruna. Melvin finally put down his computer book and frowned. Those Chanela things are making everyone real weird, he agreed. Tim wouldn't even talk to me this morning. Serena looked over at Melvin. Big surprise. No one ever talks to you. Looking back over towards Molly, she mumbled, I have a bad feeling about this. Where are these things sold? A new pet store called Perfume Pets, Molly answered. It's down the street from the arcade. You're not going to get one, are you? I'm just planning on doing a little window shopping, Serena said reassuringly. Luna was waiting for Serena when school got out. The cat looked worried. Serena, she said quickly, your brother hasn't left the room all day. Your parents seem concerned about him. Serena picked up Luna and put her on her shoulder. We're going to the pet store that sells those Chanelas, Luna said as she began to walk. We've got to check those things out. Good thinking, Serena, Luna commented. This may all be part of the enemy's plot. Enemy or not, Serena said quietly, her face sad. I've got to find out what's wrong with Sammy. He's a brat and a dork and a pain and all, but he's still my brother, and I love him. It's not like him to act like this. Yes, Luna answered gently. I know what you mean. When Serena reached the arcade, she stopped. Okay, she murmured. Molly said Perfume Pets was a little further down the street from here. Don't tell me you're going to get one of those Furby things too, Blondie. A mocking male voice was annoyingly familiar. Serena whipped around to see the same dark-haired, fashion-conscious dude she had been bumping into lately. Today he wore a light yellow polo shirt with one hand in his pocket of his khakis. Too bad this guy has much attitude as he did style, Serena thought. She crossed her arms and snickered. Well, it looks like someone fell into the gap, Serena said, narrowing her eyes. Though, in your case, too bad it wasn't a ravine. The pretty boy gave a sarcastic smile and waved a hand through the air. I should bump into you more often, he mused. You amuse me. Get lost, jerk, Serena hissed. A bit cranky, are we? As the young man walked past, he leaned near Serena's ear and whispered, I wouldn't get a Chanela if I were you. It might mistake you for its sister. As he disappeared down the sidewalk, Serena clenched her fist. What a major creep. Every time Serena saw that guy, he offended her. For some reason, though, Serena's heart was beating fast, and her palms were sweaty. Serena? Serena? Luna cocked her head. Why are you blushing? Serena immediately turned away, biting her lip. I'm not blushing, she sputtered, straightening her skirt. Come on, Luna, we've got to get moving. Serena quickly began walking down the sidewalk. Luna sighed, then followed. Perfume Pets was an empty of customers when Serena walked inside. The cages lined along the back wall were oddly silent. That's weird, she thought. Pet stores were usually really noisy. She shivered. Something about the store was strange. Can I help you? The female clerk asked as she walked up to Serena. Luna, at Serena's feet, looked up at the woman with narrow eyes. Yeah, Serena said. I'd like to see a Chanela. Why, of course. The woman led Serena to the cages. That little cat near your ankles looks a little on the moody side, the woman drawled. A little Chanela would make a much better pet. Luna hissed, but Serena nudged her with her foot to stay silent. The woman opened a cage and pulled out a Chanela. This one seems perfect for you, she beamed as she placed the Chanela in Serena's arms. If you'll notice, it smells like bubble gum. Serena's eyes widened. Really? She squealed, forgetting their mention at the mention of food. I love bubble gum. Someone else entered the store, and the clerk went to talk to him. Luna immediately jumped on Serena's shoulder. Serena, be careful, Luna warned. Remember, it was Sammy staring at the Chanela's eyes. Bubble gum, Serena's eyes got hazy and she smiled dreamily. Did I say these things are stupid? I love bubblegum. No! Luna's voice was terrified. Serena, don't look into its eyes! But it was too late. Serena was already gazing straight into the Chanera's big blue eyes like a smiling zombie. Chapter 8. Clerkzilla. Serena! Luna ran down the sidewalk after Serena. Serena, look at me! Serena wouldn't take her eyes from the small Chanera in her hands. She giggled and petted it. My beautiful little bubblegum baby, she cooed. Luna yanked Serena's shoes with her teeth. Serena, stop looking at that thing! Serena angrily pulled away from Luna's teeth and growled. Get away from me, stupid cat, Serena spat. I don't need you. My Chanera is all I need now. It's like Sammy all over again, she said, sighing. Just then, a little girl on a tricycle came running down the sidewalk. She fell off near the curb and started to cry. Serena just walked right past the little girl, preening over her Chanera. Oh, Serena, Luna mumbled as she ran to the girl and started licking her cuts. The little girl finally started sniffing and rubbing her tears away. Luna ran back to Serena and jumped on her head. This thing is evil! Luna shouted angrily as she batted the Chanera out of Serena's hands. The creature jumped to the ground to avoid falling and angrily glared at Luna. Luna glared her teeth, and the Chanera's eyes widened with fright. When Luna hissed, the owl-like creature dashed away in terror. Serena? Luna quickly licked Serena's face. Serena, are you okay? Serena blinked. Huh? She touched her face. Where am I? What happened? The Chanera hypnotized you, Luna said as Serena gently put her cat back on the ground. You looked into its eyes and you couldn't look away. Really? Serena's eyes widened. That must be the enemy's trick. Luna, we've got to get rid of these Chaneras before they take over everyone. Quickly, Luna cried as she began down the sidewalk. We've got to get your brother. Serena nodded and ran after her. She swallowed. Hang on, Sammy, she whispered. Please hang on. When Serena threw open Sammy's door, the room was still pitch dark as it had been this morning, and Sammy was still staring at the Chanera. Sammy! Serena ran in and grabbed the pet from his hand. Snap out of it! Sammy snarled, jumping up. His eyes were deep black vortexes with yellow swirling in them. What are you doing? He screamed, grabbing the Chanera back. This Chanera is mine! Sammy, listen to me! Serena yelled, grabbing his shoulders. That thing's evil. If you don't get rid of it, you... Get away from me! Sammy shrieked, pushing Serena away. You don't know anything. I'll never give up my Chanera. Clutching his pet close, he ran out of the room and down the stairs. He won't listen to me, Serena cried as she ran after him with Luna at her side. This time the enemy had gone too far. Trying to destroy her own brother? Serena was ready for vengeance. He's probably going to Perfume Pets, Luna said quickly as they reached the sidewalk. Serena, transform! Gotcha! Serena looked around to make sure no one was watching, then reached up towards the heavens. Moon prism power, make up! Serena closed her eyes as light washed over her, and, after the usual fancy 4th of July celebration-style morph sequence, she ran down the street again a Sailor Moon. Upon reaching Perfume Pets, Serena was horrified to see the place packed with children and teenagers, all holding Chaneras. Their eyes were black and yellow vortexes, focused on the store clerk, who stood up on the countertops with her arms spread. Serena scanned the crowd and found Sammy, Mika, and well as Serena's own classmates. Listen up, the clerk commanded, a crazy smile on her face. You pitiful humans, you are now my slaves. Spread the Chaneras to all your friends. The Chaneras are draining all your energy, but Jedite needs more energy. More! Give the Chaneras all the moronic humans you know, and the darkness will finally rule. The crazed clerk laughed manically. Yes, chanted the crowd, their eyes wide, but their faces blank like zombies. We will obey. Obey? Oh boy, Serena thought. Not another group of regular people turned zombies. Didn't the enemy have any other creative tactics? Enough of your chirantics! Serena yelled, jumping on top of another counter so she could direct pointedly at the clerk. After all, eye contact was crucial when making a truly threatening heroic speech. How dare you brainwash innocent people with Furby wannabes? You've corrupted the young people of Crossroads long enough. Prepare to be thwarted. Thwarted? Luna whispered from Serena's feet with nodding approval. Nice vocab word. I looked up a few choice words in the dictionary after the last battle. It was the only one I could remember, Serena whispered in Luna's ears, proud of herself. Looking back at the whacked-out store clerk, Serena clenched her fist. I am Sailor Moon, champion of justice and defender against evil, and on behalf of the moon, you're punished. The clerk narrowed her eyes at Serena. Sailor Moon, huh? She hissed. Well then, on behalf of evil, prepare to get eaten. She roared, and a great shadow melted over her, warping her form. When the darkness faded, she had turned into a green lizard with a woman's body. Serena couldn't help but giggle. What's so funny? Boomed the fire-breathing green lizard woman. Serena tried to contain her giggles. Nothing? It's just that you kind of look like a dorky version of Godzilla. Serena kept cracking up. This only angered the lizard lady more. Get her, you young fools! Clerkzilla snarled, pointing at Serena. Take her down and stop her from laughing. All the young zombies turned to Serena with dark eyes. With a cry, they started to grab at her legs. Hey! Serena screamed. Let go of me! She jumped and dove over the crowd, rolling along the floor to break her fall. Pushing open the door and running as fast as she could, Serena dashed outside with the mob in hot pursuit. What should I do? Serena cried, her voice panicked. Oh, Tuxedo Mask, where are you? You can't depend on Tuxedo Mask or anyone else for that matter, Luna yelled as the children approached. You have to learn to fight on your own, Sailor Moon. Someone grabbed Serena's pigtail, and she screamed and fell. Somehow escaping from all the arms grabbing for her, she yanked her tiara off her head. I can't use the tiara on Sammy and all my friends, Serena cried. You can use the tiara to de-brainwash them, Luna advised. Throw the tiara and cry, Moon Tiara Stardust. Serena bit her teeth, closed her eyes, and threw the tiara with all her might. Moon Tiara Stardust! Serena's tiara soared through the air above the young zombie's head. Glowing a golden light, the discus rained sparkles of gold which glittered down over the brainwashed mob. The youths immediately froze. As the gold sparkles fell on their heads and shoulders, their eyes changed from black and yellow vortexes to their normal colors. Slowly, everyone's eyelids drooped, and the mob collapsed to the sidewalk. Noticing Serena's frightened expression, Luna shook her head and smiled. That's fine, Sailor Moon, just sleeping. You did it! Serena let out a breath and put a hand over her heart. She saw Sammy's sleeping form, and her eyes softened. Oh, Sammy, she thought with relief, you're finally okay. Now I can go back to teasing you again. A long tail suddenly wrapped around Serena's throat, choking her. Clerkzilla snarled, and pulled her tail tighter around Serena's neck. How dare you! The lizard lady screamed. You think you could fool my plans and get away with it? You're history! Serena's face was turning blue. Luna? Serena eyed her black cat while gagging. Your tiara! Luna cried. Hit her at the base of her tail, Sailor Moon. That's her weak spot. Serena shakily reached her forehead and pulled her tiara off. Fighting a breeze, she threw it. Moon! Tiara! Serena choked, trying to get the words out. Action! The tiara hit Clerkzilla at the base of its tail, and Serena was immediately released. The lizard lady screamed as gold light traveled up her body and turned her to dust. No! She shrieked, fading away. Someone help! Her screams were cut off, and the sparkling light engulfed her. When it was finally flittered away, her body was vaporized into a pile of moon dust on the concrete floor. Serena caught her tiara and shakily put it back on. With a sigh, she fell to the ground in relief, her arms spread on the sidewalk. Another easy day of fighting for justice. Serena stuck her thumb out at Luna, still catching her breath. Luna smiled and walked over to Serena's face. She licked it fondly. Nice job, Sailor Moon. Just then the mob began to stir. Serena looked up, only to see Sammy sitting among the other kids and holding his head. What happened? He muttered vaguely. I don't remember anything. Looking up, he saw Sailor Moon, and his eyes widened. Serena squeaked and dove behind a parked car. As she stumbled to her feet, she thought worriedly, I can't let him see me. He might recognize me. Hey! Sammy ran up to her, eyes bright. Sailor V! Wow! Can I have your autograph? I'm a big fan. Serena scowled and her shoulders slumped. Sailor V? After all that work, no respect? A little bit of self-promotion couldn't hurt, Serena reasoned. I'm not Sailor V. I'm Sailor Moon, she corrected from behind the car. Sammy shrugged. You're still a superhero, right? That's good enough for me. Can I have an autograph? Serena grinned. That was more like it. Serena wanted to tell Sammy who she really was, but Luna would get too upset. Speaking of Luna, Serena had an idea. If you're really a fan, listen up carefully, Serena called over the car. Respect your fellow animals and treat them with kindness, particularly cats, she added with a wink at Luna. Sammy smiled and nodded. Whatever you say, Sailor Moon, Sammy said, clutching the signed paper Serena had just given him. Thanks! Serena picked up Luna and snuck away as Sammy went to go help Mika. Maybe that'll do the trick, huh, Luna? Serena asked with a smile. Luna scowled and crossed her arms. I could have gotten him to like me on my own, you know, she grumbled. Serena rolled her eyes. Yeah, right, Luna. Sure you could have. The next morning, Serena ran downstairs late as usual. Ah, where's my lunch? Serena shoved a piece of toast in her mouth, running around frantically. She ran to the breakfast table, then froze. Sammy had Luna on his lap. He fed her some of his oatmeal from a spoon and patted her on the head. Good kitty, he said with a smile. Sammy? Serena ran to him, eyes wide. You're actually getting along with Luna? Sammy shrugged, scratching Luna behind the ears. Yeah, people should respect their fellow animals and treat them with kindness. Sounds familiar, Serena thought. And Luna's pretty cool. He looked up at Serena and smirked. Much cooler than you, Serena. I don't know why she hangs around you so much. Serena snatched Luna from him. If I wasn't in such a rush, you'd pay for that brat, she said, snatching another piece of toast on her way out the door. See you guys later. You know, Serena, Luna said quietly as Serena dashed down the sidewalk, Sammy knows how to pay proper respect to the feline race. You could learn a thing or two from him. Serena jammed Luna on her shoulders and ran faster. Well, you know who to thank for his change of heart, Serena said, grinning triumphantly. Not bad, if I do say so myself. I guess even bratty Sammy can change. Serena shoved the toast in her mouth and smiled. And you know what they say? With Sailor Moon around, we have nothing to fear. Luna sighed and shook her head. Don't talk with your mouth full, Serena.